Thank you so much, Lenka, for allowing Olina and myself to do this presentation. So we are debunking a few of the most common social media myths today. These are ones that we have heard before, maybe even said, and there's loads, but we're going to stick for a few today. So a little bit about me. So I recently started my business last year after a corporate career of 11 years in construction and heavy civils, and I blended my skill set of marketing strategy and my love of some businesses to help some business owners with social media. Olina?
Hi everyone. So I'm Olina. I have been working in marketing for over 8 years now. I'm from Greece. I have experience in both B2C and B2B, and I really do love content marketing a lot. I love everything about it. I believe that the content still is the king and probably always will be. And I really love everything about researching it, coming up with the right topic, finding the most interesting stuff for social media, whether it's a text, a blog post, or video, or photo, or anything really. So yeah, that's what I love most about it.
Thank you. So these are the myths that we're going to be focusing on today. So I'm going to take the first few and then hand over to Olina. Have a little look. How many of them, have you said before? Have you heard before? We'll be asking a question about them at the end. So let's get started. So this is a question to you guys, and you can answer in the chat. How many people worldwide do you think are social media users? Just give you a quick millions, yeah. See who's got Google open. Cool. Awesome. So this fits with this myth around my customers aren't online. So there are actually 3.5 billion daily active users of social media. Now, I knew there was a lot, but this is a whole different figure. This is almost half the world's population. And these figures are from last year as well. I think the tail end of last year. So it might even be more now. And there is also a breakdown in this graphic of who those people actually are. Now, I find this question really fascinating when I talk to people about it, because for me, it highlights that actually sometimes people don't always know who their customers are. And that's really, really important, because you can sort of say off the cuff, oh, my customers aren't online, and not really give any consideration as to whether they are, whether you can reach them. So when we're looking at these figures, so people from age 22 to 72, that's probably most of the spend in our country. And this is worldwide. So if you haven't identified who your customer base is, I'm pretty sure it fits within that age range. Now, obviously, there are different parts when you're thinking about a customer. It isn't just about their age, it's their occupation, their location, and all sorts of different demographics. And I think we're going to cover those maybe in future presentations about the types of communities that are online. But I find this one really fascinating. And actually, when I talk to people directly about who their customer base is, actually, when you dig a little deeper, people don't necessarily know. A personal experience of mine is I spent some time working with one of the business owners in his business, and I sort of asked him the question of, who were your customers? And he thought it was, predominantly older men, but actually it was young women, because they had the spend power in their home. They were buying it for their other halves, but actually that was the market, that was the main core of the customer. And actually he didn't really reference that he was on Facebook. He regularly posted his new products on there, but never actually mentioned it to the customers that were coming in the store. So the people that were online were different from in the store, because there wasn't that connection. And it's fantastic, because when I started telling people we were on Facebook, within half an hour of him posting a new product, the customers would be coming through the door to buy it. So the power of understanding who your customers are and where they're online is really, really important. So these are some figures that were highlighted to me from Lenka. I think they were posted by Andy Lambert of Content Cal. So usage is up. Obviously, everybody sat at home. They're on their phones. So as much as, you know, we've got those daily active users, you know, the usage has increased so much more. I mean, look at those figures across every platform. I think that's absolutely fantastic. We're not utilizing this time now to really focus on who our customers are and where they are online. I get too excited. This is crazy. This is crazy amount of attention that we need to be making the most of. So this is another one of my favorites I've had direct experience with, that people don't like social media. And I want to be mean and say, it's not about you, but I mean it in a nice way. So I think there's two issues that come from, or a solution to not liking social media. So people don't like social media because they might have had a bad experience. They've tried it, it didn't really work for them. But, you know, they don't want to touch something because they'll break it, or they've just not really explored where it fits in their business. They use it for personal, you know, sharing of their food and their, you know, photos of their kids, and they don't understand how it translates into business. And I think if you look at it from personal into business, actually it can seem quite difficult. It's a different tool on its own. It fits within the marketing strategy. It fits within your business. It's paramount that you understand where it fits so that it doesn't seem overwhelming. It doesn't, you know, feel clunky and wrong. It's just another part of your business. And we all have parts of this business that we don't like. I don't like dealing with my accounts and my numbers. We all have those different areas that we don't like. But when you're building a business, when you're building a presence, you need to look into them. So there's two solutions that I think really help this. So one is to take the time to understand where it fits in your business, where it fits into your marketing strategy. Is it integral to what you do to use social media? And, you know, we'll look further on in which platform, etc. Because if you might have had a bad experience with one platform, the likelihood is, you know, you need to overcome some barriers, or maybe use a different platform altogether. So educate yourself, take that time. No one, this is all new technology, it changes all the time. No one just knows it. And no one who is a professional today has sort of woken up one morning and understands and knows all the updates and everything. It is a learning curve for everybody. So take the time. Another one is to work with professionals. So people who have got lots of years experience under their belt, who are active in the area, all the updates and all that knowledge and experience. Find someone to work with that really helps you as an individual. I've seen and heard lots of stories of people working with people who were condescending towards them, and it just puts them off social media. So as professionals, we need to be nicer to people and work with the right people. I'm sure we all do. But as business owners and people who want to get the most out of social media, you need to work with the right person, that you don't feel silly or embarrassed when you're asking those questions. You need to be able to say, I don't understand this, can you help me? Or have a basic level of understanding so that you can outsource to that person and you feel comfortable that you're not just kind of throwing money. You've worked on your objectives and your goals together. So that's really important, I think, for me to overcome those two fears around not liking social media and with not thinking that your customers are online. So the benefits, the positives. So here are some great benefits to the business. There can be lots of, you know, a wider indirect benefits, as Lenka has previously touched on. But these are some great ones. So brand awareness, people knowing who you are and what you do and why you do it. You know, creating that whole brand story is so important. That's the thing that stays with people. When we think about, you know, the John Lewis Christmas advert, you know, that stays with us. It makes us want to buy that cuddly toy because we understand that quality of that brand and that story and that message. Building authority as well links into that. It's so that you are the expert, and whatever you are doing, people understand that you're not just selling. Like, selling is boring, people switch off just to selling, but you know what you're talking about. You can recommend the right tools, the right services, the right products, because you understand the problems that people are having. You understand that market, and that is great about social media, because you can create those conversations and you can really I think it's a great exposure to people. It really showcases what they know. Also, the key to it is sales. That's what we want at the end of the day. We need these things to convert to sales. It's about money in the end, but it's understanding that social media fits into that story. How do we get it to convert? What is that journey from grabbing someone's attention online to creating that desire to want to work with you or to purchase your products? Another thing I'm just going to touch on is communication, especially around this time. I think it's been really key for businesses to be able to communicate with customers when they're opening, how they want people to interact with their staff, whether they want people to wait outside, whether they want people to come into their shop one by one, whether they are doing all their meetings online. Rather than someone, it adds a layer of security at the moment, rather than people just thinking, oh, I've got to go to a shop, or I've got to ring that person and find out if they're open or how they're operating. You can add that information to your channels that people can easily find. And it's a two-way conversation. That's what's great. It's not just about broadcasting. It's, you can listen as well. And then the last one from me, this is why you should be social online. So it links into the previous one of the benefits, but this is why you should be social. It adds another layer. You're visible. You have a community of fans. I'm a big advocate for growing a community of fans around you and what you do and how you interact with people. It's so, so important, because people feel part of something special. They're with their tribe. They're with people who think and feel the same as them. And you're a person. People buy from people. Doesn't matter whether your company is small or big. If we think about Virgin, we all think that Richard Branson is probably in the cockpit flying the plane. We have that feeling. And whenever something goes wrong, his Twitter is alive whenever something goes wrong. He's not running at specific parts of the business, but we have that connection with that brand, with that person, because we buy from people. And we buy from people like ourselves because we trust them. So rather than, if you see an advert for a product, it's great, but we can't relate to that product, but we can relate to people. We can relate to the problems that they have that are the same as us. And for me, building that community, building those relationships are what's really, really strong. And actually it goes beyond a product and a service. So Gary Vee, we've probably all heard of Gary Vee, is such a strong character in social media, but he has the ability to sell lots of things because he has a community who have bought into his passion, bought into his drive, and they're ready. And he can sell shoes, he can sell cereal, he can sell cartoons. It doesn't matter, because everyone is hanging on his words because they're bought into his community. So it's really, really powerful to be social, to listen and to engage. And obviously it's another channel for your marketing. Not just one way, it's creating that community, and it makes sure that you are everywhere and adding maximum impact. Olina.
So moving to my first myth, actually, I think that is the most popular one. It's something that I've heard many times, really, and especially, but not exclusively, from startup new companies, which is that I need to be on every social media platform. Now, I think that's simply not true, because you just can't be everywhere at the same time. You'll probably just end up losing time and money and resources. So instead, I think that what companies should do is find out where your ideal customers hang out online, and mainly where they are most active, not necessarily, for example, that your ideal customer has a Twitter account but never goes on Twitter. It's where they are active that's the most important bit. So for this, of course, you can research it, but I think that a pretty good starting point is check what your competitors are doing, what's the social media that they use the most. And of course, you can also always ask your own customers which social media they prefer, where they are most, spend their time online. Now, I think that especially for new companies, the best thing would be to start with maybe 1 or 3 social media channels, the ones that the customers mainly use. Create a social media strategy for each and one of them, your targets and your goals. Like, what do you want to get out of social media? What is the main thing that you want from it? Is it, for example, awareness? Is it conversion? It depends on each company. And then I think that you should focus on this mainly before you kind of spread your wings and go to other social media channels. And also one other good thing, I think, is to remember to always explore these niche social media, the kind of really small ones, which of course they don't have the audience is not as big as Facebook's, for example, but again, it's smaller, but it's much more engaged. It's so targeted. They're highly interested in whatever the topic is. Now, these niche networks are so many. It's probably one for every company, every sector, every taste really out there. But the most important ones, I think, it's Quora, for example, or Meetup if you're, a company that's running events. Reddit for any types of questions that people can have, and it's subreddits. Goodreads if you love books and you need to promote your work online. There are really so many. Could we go to the next slide? So I've got one question too. Which one do you think that is the most popular social media platform? I think that somebody asked that question before. Which one would you guess?
So lots of thinking going on.
Facebook, Instagram, Facebook, interesting insights.
Yeah, truly.
YouTube.
So if we can move to the next slide. Yep, it is Facebook. As most of you imagined, really. Facebook is still the king of social media. It's still, I think, it's a given for pretty much all companies that they need to have a Facebook account. They need to be on Facebook. YouTube is the second one. I don't know if that's a surprise for many of you. And WhatsApp, of course. Now, what I find really interesting in this is that, for example, TikTok is on the rise. It's becoming huge, really. And the other interesting bit is that Reddit, which is kind of a niche social media platform, has more active users, people who are on it like all the time, more active users than Twitter and Pinterest combined. I find that a bit, a really interesting bit of point. Next slide. And again, you go where your followers are, where your ideal customers are. That would depend. So, for example, a rule of thumb, or a rough guide, like it's that younger people tend to be mainly on Instagram. They're highly visual. So, for example, if you're targeting, say, teenagers and people 13 to 17, then your best bet would be Instagram, would be better than Facebook. So you should instead, I think, focus there instead of Facebook, which is, again, more popular with the older generations for some reason. I still love it. Next one. Yeah, that's another kind of persistent myth that social media is free, so just why not go ahead and try it? So the truth is that, yes, social media is free, of course. You don't need to pay to have an account in most of them, but social media marketing actually is not free because it takes a lot of time, and I know it takes a lot of time to create the right content, good content, but it is definitely worth it. And I do promise you, it does get easier in time. Takes some time, but you get used to it, you get the knack of it. So where do you start? So you have a social media strategy. Okay, that's great. Next step is, once you know what you want out of every social media platform that you own, you need to have a content calendar, the most important dates, the things that you want to post for on each social medium. Just always remember, that's a good tip, to allow some time for spontaneous engagement. Anything that happens, for example, anything that a conversation that it just starts, and you need to be there and you need to be a part of it. Repurposing some good evergreen content, it's also a very good idea. So if you had, for example, a really lengthy blog post that people really loved, there's nothing stopping you from using it again and again, or repurposing it. Like, you can have everything from a video or a series of videos on the subject that people loved. You can have images, you can have infographics, you can just use it again and again. There's no reason to just, shelf it and never use it again. And content curation, again, of course, which I find really interesting and a very good idea, thinking that it shouldn't only be about you, your company, and your products. Content curation, which is third-party stuff from really good sources, of course, really interesting accounts, could be anything industry related. So you can reshare it or retweet it or whatever, but giving your own bit of a personal opinion, your take on the subject. That could be anything. That could be any news on the sector, any really interesting thing that's been going on. And again, it's a pretty good idea because people also tend to reciprocate. So if you, for example, retweet someone, they're going to retweet you and they're going to get in the conversation, which is really a really good way. And it's what social media are all about, really. So next one. Again, that's persistent, that I need to create and post a lot of content, which it's not necessarily true. There's no magic formula as to how much content you should create and post. It's not like you should be posting every day or many times a day. It really does depend on the social media platform. It depends on your audience, when they're in, when they're not. It depends on many things. So really what I think that it's most important that you need to post regularly. So if people know that they're going to find you at least once a week, but it's going to be really useful and really good content, then you should be there once a week. So not necessarily every day again. It's mainly high quality and relevant and helpful content, something that it's going to, help and relate. Sorry about that. So, like, really, the most important thing is that it's quality, not necessarily quantity, like post every day or many times a day.
Hello.
Don't have a post just for the sake of posting something. It doesn't really work. Find the sweet spot, the right times, the right days that you can get into the conversation and help people, and stick with that, and always experiment. Try again, new days, new things. Of course, check always your social media insights, your analytics to find the best day, the best time, and start from there. So for engagement, for example, I found that really useful because it gives the pre-COVID, like Markie said before, the pre and post-COVID, things that have really changed a lot in time. So this would be Facebook's global engagement pre-COVID, which means, according to this, Wednesday, for example, 10 a.m. and 1 to 2 p.m. would be the best really times and days to post. Now this, can you change the post-COVID has really changed a lot. Like Markie said, people have changed the time, the amount of time during the day and which day they spend at home, and being on social media has changed a lot. So there's been a really huge change in social media. So now, for example, the difference is that the best time to post would be Monday, Wednesday, different days, different times, as people tend to be more at home now. And next one. That again is quite persistent and quite popular, that you will get instant results, but doesn't really necessarily work that way. I think that content in social media can give really great results, but it just never happens overnight, really, because it takes time and effort to build a community, to build trust in your company. So the best advice really would be to be consistent, be helpful, be honest about what you do, join the conversation. Remember that it's not a broadcast, it's a two-way conversation. You need to talk to people and people will talk to you, and in time it will work. Just tell your story the best way and the most authentic way possible. Always, of course, check your analytics to see what content worked best and what didn't. Try to figure out why it didn't work. And of course, when you need to, try to just change things a bit, experiment. So change the time, change the day, change the visuals or the text, the copy. Just remember to keep experimenting and see what works and what doesn't.
So I'll just add to that while you take a little drink.
Yeah, because I need that.
So I think this is really important, and obviously if you think about the timescale of like a sales process, where you take someone from being, you know, a cold lead or a cold audience to being, you know, hot and warm, you know, that can take time. You know, even if you were doing it face to face, those things sometimes can take like a year to get a sale. You know, I've seen that before with, you know, sales men and women out in the field, you know, working with a client, you know, having lots of conversations, you know, I think there's, you know, what's the average, 7 to 12 touch points that a customer goes through to start to feel that they want to buy from you and they want to have that purchase. So, you know, that's never going to happen overnight, that you're going to move someone from just discovering you to really wanting your product. That doesn't, you know, that rarely happens. Even if someone comes to your brick and mortar store, you know, that they might not come again. If you've worked really hard to kind of sell something there and then and in that situation, how does that feel for the customer? Do they want to keep going back to your store? Because actually, you know, you want to be wined and dined as a customer. You know, you've got that ability to do that. And, you know, that's why, you know, thinking about long term really helps solidify this online presence. So yes, yeah. Carry on.
Definitely. Definitely. So for example, for me, one of my really favorite brands on social is Innocent Drinks on Facebook, because they are so good at what they do. And the fun fact is that I didn't even know the company when I moved to the UK. I had no idea who they were and what they were doing. I discovered them really on Facebook because they're so funny and they're so good at what they do, and their community is so engaged, sending them pictures of the pets, for example, sending, you know, really engaging and sharing, and the content really resonates with people and they really love it. And I only discovered the products afterwards, to be honest. I didn't even know who they were. I discovered them first on Facebook.
Amazing.
And that would be, yeah.
So yes, so as I mentioned before, so how many of these myths have you heard before? The ones that we mentioned, or similar ones that you might have said or thought yourself?
Yeah, the ones that really kind of troubled you too in the past, you know, how to handle them.
It's like a bit of engagement. Thinking. There's so many. I can think of hundreds more. You don't like social media? Yeah, I get that all the time. I don't like it. I don't want to do it. Shall we move on? That's a thinker. It's good to hear people's perspective.
So for the end, we wanted just to give you kind of like a small task, which would be find your favorite brands on social media. If for me, for example, it's Innocent Drinks, for you it should be something else, and try to find what is it that they do right to engage people. How do they do that? Is it because they're funny, for example? Is it that they have a tone of voice that's different and distinct? Is it that they have authority on the subject? Whatever it is, it's something that you do like, that you do admire. So try to find what is this that you like about them and that people do like a lot. It's not applicable, of course, it's not for everyone really, but again, it's something that maybe you could use. You see that people do like it and engage with it and could be useful for you. So just find the company that you like the most on social media and try to see really what they get right, what it is that they do.
I love that task. I'm going to go and do that.
Yeah, I like it too.
Because I think it's so important as well. You know, what draws us to certain brands on social media? Like you say, do they have a sense of humour that matches our own, that then we can replicate in what we do? I think it's really interesting to be inspired by other people. Awesome. So then we're closing. We want you to join us, join our group, so that we can work through all the myths together, whether that's from you know, our own, working on our own clients or our own personal channels or our own businesses, or, you know, working with professionals. We're here to help and support each other. So make sure that you join the group, make sure that you share the group with everybody who's going to find this useful or that can add something to the group as well. And then thank you. And any questions?
Amazing. Thank you so much for an awesome talk. I will stop sharing and I will unmute people now. So if there's anyone who wants to share something, who has a question, who has, you know, something to say, then go for it. You can unmute yourself. You can wave at me and I will unmute you, whichever way you want to do this. If we don't have any questions, we have a question from Kelly who says, what is your view on replying to bad comments, like haters one?
Oh, that's always a tough one, but I think that you should always actually reply. Many businesses just don't, and I think that it's wrong because it's out there and people see it and see that you haven't done anything, taken any action on it. So unless it's a troll, in which case I think that you can just dismiss. I think that the best course of action is to reply and ask to move it, you know, on messaging or DM or whatever. But you should reply and try to show some understanding and some empathy. So if it's not a really mega troll on social media, I just tend to reply really, because it makes people feel better and it shows that you really actually care. You took the time to, you know, to reply to whatever it was. And I have seen people actually turning around without changing their mind about a company. So they're starting with really huge complaints that this happened or that happened. And then if you show them understanding, they show understanding as well. And they change their mind, they change their opinion, and they change their reviews too, by the way, which is quite useful.
Yeah, it's totally your chance to show that you're a superhero at customer service. Like nothing ever goes right all the time. And actually, would you be suspicious if you came across a business that it was 5-star rating, everybody raved about it, everybody loved it? Is that real? Does that really happen? Whereas actually problems do happen. They, you know, things do occur, bad reviews happen, people, you know, bad things happen. Actually, how do they then deal with that? And if you can see that they've changed it around, if you see that they're empathetic and they're understanding, like that's more incredible, surely. Like that's when you get to show that you know what you're doing. Like it's easy when everything's perfect. That doesn't prove what a specialist you are. So I think, you know, work with it as much as possible. So definitely respond.
That's a great advice. We have a question from Maria. She says, if you don't do much social media and you are starting with no followers, what would be a good way to break the ice? Let's take this one.
So I
think completely new on social media.
Yeah, I think just talk about what you do. Just share your story. Like you're doing it you're not doing it from a place that you're trying to get followers or trying to get. It shouldn't be about that. You're just there to share your story. Like just start. Like too many people worry about the follower count. It doesn't mean anything. It doesn't mean anything, grand scheme, and everyone's got to start with 0. So
yeah, you need to start somewhere. It's a good idea, for example, always to ask questions. I think to run a poll, for example, or you know, join a conversation and get people to talk, ask their opinion. Everybody loves giving their opinion. So if it's anything that you really need to learn from your audience, just go to them really.
Yeah, I really like Charlie's comment who says, I would 100% put out a post that introduces who you are and what you do. Absolutely. If you're just starting out, as Markie said, tell your story, be like, this is who I am, this is what I'm trying to achieve, this is what I'm here to help you with. Lovely to meet you all. Let me know your questions. Kind of introduction and telling your story is always a good start. Brilliant. We have another question from Corinne. And she asked, what is your #1 tip to engage people on building the community page? I have tried different tactics. For me, it works best when it's not a business page, but a simple group.
People buy from people. Be a person. I think it depends, like what you're trying to achieve. Like what is the, you know, the goal of the group? Is it you want 1 million people in there? Is it that you want meaningful conversation? Is it that you want people to help each other? Like what's the goal of the group? And communicate that. What do you want people? You have to tell people what you want them to do, because people have got enough going on. They don't want to have to you know, think about what's the purpose of this group, what do they want me to do, like just be, you know, guide people, say this is what we're trying to do, here's, you know, some resources, or ask questions, or what, you know, help people out.
Yeah, and again, you can also you can always check what your competitors are doing, you know, what the conversation is, and what the things that people need to know, what the questions are, and then you can go on and reply, you know, find the most interesting subjects for them and go and reply, or write a useful piece of content or a useful video. And always remember, of course, the kind of a golden rule for social media, which is the 80 to 20. It shouldn't always be about your products and your services. Should be about 80% should be about other people, third-party content, for example, or news, or anything that people will find useful or fun. And only the 20% of it should really be about your products. Nobody likes the, you know, aside from some companies with offers, for example, nobody really likes people who are too salesy. And as Markie said, it's all about people. So that's who you're talking to.
Yeah, so right. One question that is kind of a mixture of a couple of questions that I've seen before this meetup and in your comments, and that's finding the right platform for you. You guys mentioned that, you know, you should be on one or two of the networks, don't try to everywhere, find out where your audience is. And where would you go to do your research to find out the distribution of social media users, about the various platforms, when I'm trying to figure out which platforms I actually should be on, where my audience actually are active?
Well, there is some rule of thumb, which is quite useful in marketing, which is that if, for example, you're a B2B company, you need to be definitely on LinkedIn and on Twitter. It's where the conversation is. I would also add the niche platforms that I mentioned, like Quora, for example, or Reddit, because people go there and ask questions. And if you have authority and you have knowledge on the subject, then definitely you can go in to help them. They will remember that. If it's B2C and if it's more visual, like selling clothes or whatever, then you definitely need to be on a really visual platform. Again, I think that Facebook is a given nowadays for most companies, but it should be Instagram or Pinterest, the really visual social media that will help people see your images. There is no right and wrong, I think, answer to that question, but you can always do your research online, and always, of course, again, check your competitors, where they are, where they spend most time in. And of course, you can also ask your customers themselves which ones they prefer. Ask questions. I really do like asking people questions about, you know, what they think about this or that. And having said that, the right social media for each type of business, I always do like companies who go an extra mile, if they have the manpower, of course, to do it, to have a social media presence and to actually post. So for me, nothing stops you if you're a B2C company, say tech, nothing stops you from being on Instagram at some point. It's not going to generate sales necessarily, not at first at least, but it's a very good, I think, a very good idea to showcase the company culture, the people behind it, your own employees, to tell their stories. So if you can't do it, definitely do it.
Anything that you would add, Markie, or even Dana? Feel free to jump in if you have anything else. I'm checking on if you have any further questions.
I was writing something that is gonna go for everyone. So in terms of the question was about how do I find where they are when I'm first joining, and we talked before about social listening, and social listening helps a lot with market entry research. It sounds so heavy, I know, but market entry research is just finding those social listening tools to find out where your topic or where the brands that are lookalike are doing and what is the level of engagement. So one of the things that I do for my clients before I choose what platforms they should be, I use a tool called Rival IQ, and it's more like a competitive analysis. So I see where companies that look like me are, where they are really active, and what is the engagement they are getting on each channel. So if I see someone who is, just one example, one person who has 1 million followers on Facebook, because everyone needs to be on Facebook, but most of his engagement is actually on Instagram, and he has only 10,000 followers, not 1 million. I would tell my client, go to Instagram. So basically, it's a market entry research. I will write some of the tools that you can use for that, and but you need someone who knows what they're doing in those tools. But you can always learn.
I don't have anything to add. It's a good question. You've got lots of great answers.
That's amazing. So if anyone has any last remarks, if anyone has anything that they want to ask, then please go ahead. We have a couple of minutes before the session is over. If not, thank you everyone so much for joining. Hope you enjoyed the talk, you found it helpful. If there's anything else that we haven't touched on and you wanted to know, then as always, get in touch with us, comment, DM us, whatever. We'll try to find a way to help you out and to get the right answers over to you. But yeah, thank you so much. Thank you so much for everyone for joining us. I can see some people waving and clapping and sharing great comments. Thank you so much. I will quickly share the link to John Esperian in the comments if anyone wants to go and learn about LinkedIn and haven't came across John Esperian just yet. Highly recommend him, because he's like, for me, he's the god of LinkedIn. He knows so much about LinkedIn for personal brands and can explain it so simply, so easily. So highly recommend following up that guy.
Lenka, if we can also mention, we did have a talk on social listening. So it's actually in our group. So if you head to our Facebook group and go to the live sessions, you will find all the topics that we have been doing. One of them has been social listening for people who ask. One of them has been personal branding with Joe Glover, that also people asked about it. And we had one which is, how to get engagement, which was making. So yeah, head over, if you are new here, head over to the group and you will find all the sessions. And we always welcome questions.